Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Tanya Darisi. I'm a director at the O'Halloran Group, which is a research and evaluation consulting organization. And I started that about a year ago. I change my tagline all the time, but currently it's around research in the service of social change. So really, we work very hard to emphasize and push forward that research should always be useful, and it should always be serving a purpose and supporting organizations and moving forward. So in talking about developmental evaluation today, that's one of my sort of underlying themes. And giving this overview, so there's three areas that we want to address. First of all is why we do a developmental evaluation, what it is, and what it's good for. Then also, how are we using it as part of the Social Prosperity Project? And then the last piece is how you can get involved in that process. And that goes back to that survey that Russell had mentioned earlier on. Did anybody put that on their call to action? They will complete the survey. So just before I get started, I want to tell you a story. I was standing in my local shawarma shop the other day waiting for my lunch. And as I was waiting for it was taking a little while. So the owner gave me a pile of National Geographic magazines to look through. I love National Geographic because the photographs are absolutely amazing. And one of the stories in the National Geographic magazine was around a girls' education and the lack of girls' education, or the sort of barriers to girls' education in the Middle East. And then there was another story on how our throwaway society and the rapidly changing technology is really creating this level of waste and recycling that we just can't keep up with. Appliances and electronics are being thrown out at an incredible pace. There's another story on poverty in the United States and the housing conditions. And as I was looking through all these stories, I noticed something. Like, that car, it looks really old. And then I flipped back, and I was like, I think that's a record player. So then I went back to the cover of the magazine, and the date on the cover was 1983. Then I looked at another one, it was 1978. And I had thought that these were current magazines. And the owner of the shop, she kind of looked at me, laughed. I was looking at the dates, and she said, the world doesn't really change much, does it? I thought, the world doesn't really change much, does it? We have these seemingly intractable social issues. We shouted out a number of them earlier today: homelessness, poverty, gender-based violence, health inequities. So we can pile them on. The list gets higher and longer, and it starts to feel really heavy. And we know that the same old way of doing things, the same old institution, the same old processes don't really get us anything other than the same old problems. The good news, I think, in developmental evaluation and where we come in is that we are all looking for different ways of doing things. We want new ideas, new ways of doing things, and that's where developmental evaluation can come in. Ian doesn't know it when he spoke earlier today, but a lot of what he talked about is right in line with developmental evaluation and what it can do to support innovative and substantive social change. So there you go, even the 2 plus 2, different ways of looking at it. So what is developmental evaluation? It was really designed and developed in the context for innovative, design-oriented initiatives. When you are trying to do something different, maybe you don't really know, what all the different pieces are, that you're operating in these very complex environments. There are layers and intersections, and trying to navigate through that. For partners, strategies, those activities, those outcomes, you don't really know what they are at the beginning. They're unfolding, they're emerging. And with evaluation, you think about evaluation and what it does and what it's designed to do, it's often very much in the accountability. And evaluation is accountability oriented. Does anybody have done evaluation in the past or had to have evaluation done as part of their programs? Just a couple? Yeah. Any thoughts about evaluation when it comes to mind?
You need to include lots of detail.
Yes.
Don't circle 1 or 5. Like, give your comment under it. That's valuable.
Yes, yeah. Detail's good. Yes?
It tends to be the
Yeah, it's not planned. It happens afterwards. Scramble at the end.
It takes time.
Yes, it takes a lot of time. Yes, Michelle.
It seems a lot of times nothing really valuable is done with the information. You don't get around to actually doing the evaluation and getting back out to your staff and actually creating change in behavior. That's where sometimes it falls down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not useful. It sits on a shelf. No one reads it. Any other experiences with evaluation?
It has to be ongoing.
It does. And follow the process as you go through it. Yes?
I think it's great to highlight your successes as well. So it's a reason to celebrate what you've done and look back and see that data.
Absolutely. It can be very validating as well. Like, look at what we did and how well we did. Well, and I think most experiences, or often experience of evaluation, are very much in that accountability context. Evaluation has been mandated by funders or by governments. You have to demonstrate that you are doing what you said you were going to do at the very beginning and that you've achieved the things you said you were going to achieve. It's very structured, and it can sometimes feel a little bit painful as well. I often encounter a lot of resistance when I first start working with an organization around evaluation. In fact, I often feel like I'm telling people it's like telling someone I'm a dentist. They know that what I do is important, but they know that it's kind of painful. They don't really want to get into it. And I think that's because it isn't always focused. It isn't ongoing. It doesn't contribute to learning. And I think whether we're talking about developmental evaluation or not, that all evaluation should support learning. Good research, when it's designed well, can get you some really valuable information about what you're doing, what the different factors are that you need to consider in the work that you're doing. And that information in the hands of insightful, experienced, and committed people can really facilitate some decision making and movement within organizations. I think evaluation isn't often positioned as always contributing to learning, but I really think it should. And with developmental evaluation, what makes developmental evaluation different is that learning process, that focus on reflection, and that ongoing discussion, thinking about what it is we're doing, what's unfolding, what new things are coming to light, is really the central part of what is developmental evaluation and how it's defined. So, we're working in complex contexts. Solving these big social issues, they are messy, they are complex, there's lots of things going on, and evaluation and sort of being reflective about what you're doing and how you're doing it, it can help be a path that navigates through that complexity. That's a Jackson Pollock, by the way, who started this emerging kind of art form, and that works really well, I think, with the developmental metaphor, that it is really about working in an emerging context. When Ian was speaking earlier today and talking about how you approach change with the vision of what it is you want to accomplish and working out how to get there. And I think developmental evaluation is one way to help you navigate through that complexity. So anybody see one of these before? This is one of those things that feel a little bit painful, maybe. So this is a traditional logic model, and it's supposed to define the program and what you're doing. You see some activities over on the side here, the things that you said that you were going to do, leading to some outcomes. They're founded on some assumptions that if we do all the good things over here, then we get all this change down here happening. And these kind of frameworks, they really define and are used in evaluation and how, defining what you want to measure, what you want to communicate about. And for programs that are set and established and are operating for a while, you have a really good sense of what you're doing, a logic model can be very helpful. There's limitations to them, of course, but they really help to sort of chart your path and make the connections between your activities and your outcomes. In a developmental evaluation context, this isn't very helpful because it is so linear and it is so well defined. When you're working you don't always know what you're going to do, or you have some activities that are not working, you change your activities, you change your strategies as you go along. If you're trying to impose a rigid structure like a logic model or a framework onto your process, I think it sometimes feels a little bit like this. We're trapped. You're stuck up on that wall in these overly rigid frameworks that don't really reflect what you're doing and how you're doing it. It doesn't, and I think this is what makes evaluation often painful for people when they're trying to apply something that just really doesn't fit. So with taking those developmental sort of attitude towards doing evaluation, it really needs to give the space for learning, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, going back and redesigning your process, and allowing those feedback loops so that you can get the information that you need when you need it. And I'll go through sort of that what and how in a bit, but really it's trying to encourage that fearlessness that, let's grab onto this opportunity and see how it works out. And if it doesn't work out, we'll try something different as part of that process.